Vince.
Yo.
So, could you possibly give me the definition of population explosion worldwide in developing nations, and what you believe to be the causes, sir?
Population explosion is when the population gets very, very, very big in a small amount of time. And it happens when a lot of people have a lot of sex.
Alright, I'm here with our school librarian, Mrs. Hussey, and she's going to answer a question for us for this interview of what your definition would be of population explosion and its causes.
Okay. Well, I don't think that population explosion applies to every country around the world, obviously, but those countries that it does apply to, such as India, China, it obviously wants to drain on their natural resources and their economies. Since we are a global economy, we also then are affected. Certainly the pollution issues in China are huge because of their vastly growing population that affects rural populations, even in nearby countries where their pollution spills over in the air. So, you know, is it a global problem? Not per country, but since we are all on this planet together, then yes, definitely it affects everybody.
I'm here with Randolph Brown. Hey, sir. I have a couple questions for you. What is your definition of population explosion, and what do you feel are the causes for this?
The definition is probably just a lot of babies that are born in a certain time period, and the causes is just because people want to reproduce babies.
At least you said Dick 60.
I'm here with Jason over here, and we're just trying to ask some questions about population explosion.
Explosion?
Yeah, so,
explosions?
yeah, I'm talking about like what do you believe the definition of population explosion is and how it affects our world, what its causes may be,
The definition of population explosion?
and the causes.
Well, Tim, I believe the definition of population explosion would be the overpopulation of countries due to poverty and wealthiness and just technological advances that are in our society nowadays to make population more apt to happen and easier to happen.
Alright, so...
Doing, I got a couple questions for you. First off, what is your definition of population explosion? And secondly, what do you feel are some of the causes to population explosion?
Well, population explosion, I would have to think, is the population increasing over a period of time. Some reasons for this may be, I wouldn't see it in America, but in some of the other countries, a lot of people are having lots of babies. So I would see this in maybe China or anywhere where the population is increasing over time. I wouldn't think it's happening in many countries.
All right, thank you. Those are all good answers, but whatever we say, my basement goes. Yeah, we're watching Man vs. Wild in HD, but that's not the point. The point is that there's a population explosion here in the world, and we're here to talk about it today. We feel like there are four main causes to the population explosion.
Number 1.
Lack of contraception.
Number 2.
Absence of development.
Number 3, lack of education. For example, the kind of education you should be receiving in your AP Environmental Science class with Mr. Nick Kaplak.
Number 4 is the child liability and asset dilemma in undeveloped and developed nations. Like little Tommy here.
Next, we're on the topic of different worlds and how rich nations and poor nations differ in growth. Mr. Kaplak, I'm sorry, I know I'm reading from a paper, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Highly developed countries hold just 20% of the world's population, but that 20% controls about 80% of the world's wealth. On the other hand, developing countries, which have 80% of the world's population, only control about 20% of the world's wealth.
For example, in undeveloped nations, it's considered an asset when a family has more kids, because more kids is more helping hands on the farm, which will create more money for a family in the long run.
Now, on the other hand, in developed countries, children are seen as a liability. I don't know why I'm seen as a liability. I think I'm an asset to any family, but that's another argument. The reason they're a liability, though, is because in early life, in order to maintain a certain standard of living, they need more cash flow, if you will. It costs money to pay for insurance, clothes, Xbox 360 Live, Modern Warfare 2. Sorry. But it costs more money to take care of kids in developed countries until they achieve all of their education and are able to start bringing in money for themselves and for their family. Here in developed nations, when it comes to dealing with the climate, we know how to do it best. You see, we have nice big houses with roofs over our head, furnaces heating these houses, making it nice and warm when it's ridiculously cold outside and no one likes to be out there. And for the short time we're out there, we can jump in cars to get from place to place so we don't have to suffer too long in the cold. But environmentally, the impacts of this kind of not so good. You see, that furnace is polluting our environment. Those cars, I'm pretty sure they're polluting our environment a little bit. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's nice to live like this, but our environment, it's not so good.